Hello. Thanks for watching another random palm reading. This one I've been meaning to do for ages, and at first I thought this was a fire hand. Um, Long palm, short fingers, which, if you look at it in a certain way, it is. But then I realised that the kind of classic features of the fire hand, so a short headline, the short fingers. This person, the fingers I suppose are short, but only just. It does not, no one element really works here. And that's just sometimes the case in any one of the systems of categorizing a person's nature. Sometimes no one system works. So Fred Getting's system of four, I try to elaborate on this by including a kind of subdivision element. And that's just my way of, I've elaborated on a system before, and I've got my own system of 16. David Brandon Jones, I think he had about his own personal system of 12, which is a completely unique system he devised. There's the Darpentigny's system of 6, I think it is, with a 7th kind of composite that doesn't sort of fit into any one category. And everything, pretty much all of the systems, I think there's a Chinese system as well, of 12 perhaps. There's always one that kind of doesn't really fit. There's one that's sort of like, okay, well, if none of these fit, then it'll be, the unknown or the composite. And that's just a way of sort of saying, well, don't worry about it. Just look at what the hand is telling you. And that's kind of what we have to do here. So we have, on the whole, a long palm, but with a sort of squarish element. The fingers are spread out a little bit. We've got a long headline. The fingers are not quite long, they're not quite short. So we've got a very kind of complex character. But a bit of an oddball, someone that doesn't really fit into any one of the social groups when growing up. Growing up was probably quite difficult. That's actually, I think, evident by what we're seeing in the palm here. So the early years here on the left palm, let's just get one thing out of the way here. We've got a teacher square on the Jupiter mount here, a teacher square. And that's this kind of inherent ability, this want to impass information, a skill in doing that. And also on the Mercury mount here, you've got these several upward strokes. These are skills acquired, and it's known as the medical stigmata or the Good Samaritan lines, and you don't see them on people who aren't good-natured. And the good nature of this person is also evident by the arc of the heart line, where the heart line begins as well. So that's really nice to see. And I think that the medical stigmata or the Good Samaritan lines is in conjunction with this teacher square says a lot about how this person wants to be helpful. It's not just about helping someone and then moving on. It's about helping them progress. So there's a desire there, and then we're looking at left hand here. So this is the kind of inherited, or the feelings about how the aspirations and desires of who this person is. There's a desire there to help people on their way, so that they've got what they need. Teach a man to fish, and all that, and that's what's happening here. We've got someone who has a desire to impass information and better people's lives as a result, and move on. It's about enabling. That's what we've got here, a person who's wanting to enable others. Now the headline and the lifeline are joined for quite some time. That's a terrible example, if you see here. So it's around the age of 20 that this person really begins to claim their independence. And as I say, school years, I believe, were quite difficult for this person. There's quite a lot of chaining going on. There's a few islands here, particularly around the age of 18. There's a trauma here. And I don't know, this could be physical. It could be mental trauma. It could be both. Sometimes a severe accident causes both. I'm not entirely certain what this was, but interestingly, we've got a couple of ambition lines here, and this line, this one here, is this person developing their skills, their academic skills, and so the ambition combined with this period of learning from quite a young age, and kind of reaches towards an area of learning and expression, creativity, and it's this person kind of coming out of their shell, making necessary steps in becoming the person who they are. And that's often it's a person learning how to read and write, or learning musical skills, or learning mathematics, learning sort of skills that help propel them become the person who they are and who they want to be. So this kind of triangle formation is it's prosperous. It's a sign of prosperity, I suppose, because the combination of ambition, which is not yet fully learned, takes a change in direction as it grows, that ambition there. So it's becoming more sort of actualized, more realized. It's the combination of the two. It shows how this person is developing, making these necessary fundamental steps before adulthood. And then unfortunately there's this moment of trauma here. I don't know what this is, as I say. And also after that, there are times of difficulty. This is a stressful period as this person claims their independence. I'm not sure if they, went to college or university, but this was a difficult time. So the left hand here, this is how the person feels. This is internal, how this person was affected at this time. And if we look at the right hand, we can see how it affected them more on a sort of physical or a practical material level. And it does look as though from the age of about 25 to 30, perhaps, or just late 20s, this is a particularly difficult time. I mean, I suppose there's no need for me to circle this. You can see this island here that's developed as this person claimed independence. So it's almost as though when they moved out, or when they made the decision to kind of, fly the nest, there was difficult periods. Perhaps they mixed with the wrong people. And as I say, this is a cautious person. This is a shy person innately. That's what the sort of chaining as the life and the headline joined represents. However, this person has come out of their shell, and that's evident by, look at the Mercury finger. It rises above the first line of Apollo there, that first phalanx. And it does also on the left hand. I wonder if it's a little bit taller on the right. These pictures aren't incredibly reliable, because if you look here, you've got the Jupiter finger that looks like it's short or on the shortish side. But then when you look at the back of the hands, they reveal a different story. And actually you can see that Jupiter and Apollo are level on the right hands, whereas on the left, Jupiter appears slightly shorter. But again, I'm not entirely convinced these pictures are accurate in determining how this person has developed in terms of the the personal development. But it is interesting to note that look at the Jupiter finger and how it leans separately from the other fingers on the right hand here. And look at it on the left. So the left shows them all in a state of fair alignment here. They're all reaching in a similar direction. They're all well developed. This person is, is a well developed individual, and as I've stated, a decent person for all intents and purposes. But look at the way that Jupiter leans away from the rest. This implies an individual thinker. Now, I even have an example of this individual thinking in a book I've been reading. It even says it at the bottom of the page there. Widely separated index finger at the middle, and widely separated index finger and middle finger is a sign of independent thinking. This is in a book I've been reading this morning called Medical Palmistry, A Doctor's Guide to Better Health Through Hand Analysis. I'll chuck that in the description. It's okay. I mean, it's not incredibly PC, and I don't agree with everything written in the book. It's a bit vague, but there are some good chunks of information as always. Well, not as always, in fact, but with decent books on palmistry. So I just thought that was interesting to note that this person is on the right hand and not the left, which shows us that this person has developed has become an independent thinker, or more of an independent thinker. This is a natural sort of finger leaning. So this is the right hand. This is what's current, and the kind of practical, material, physical, what's developed as a result of what was given, if you like. So the natural finger leanings are suggesting this person is becoming more independent at this moment in time in terms of their thoughts. They're moving away from the conventional kind of ways of thinking. And also, when you look at the other fingers on the right hand, they're kind of pointing more towards an unconscious side of the palm, the ulnar side of the palm. So if you divide the palm in two, not like that, that's terrible. You have, this is the radial side, and it's the conscious side, which is why you have, this is ideas and judgment and leadership. These are very sort of conscious skills and traits and abilities. And then you have the conscious finger itself, which it actually is, strictly speaking, you divide the palm in two through the Saturn finger, because half of Saturn is conscious, the other half is unconscious, which is why there's always a push and pull between, within the superego. Some things are unconscious, some things are conscious when it comes to this finger. But the point I'm trying to make is here, these three fingers are leaning more towards this unconscious side of the palm, the part of the palm which deals with dreams and imagination and creativity and restlessness, fantasy and escapism, and this area of wanting to escape is a big word, I suppose, because this person at the time this picture was taken was leaving their job, and they were looking to expand their horizons within their role, and looking at developing themselves in new ways. So these fingers are literally sort of looking towards the outside world and leaving Jupiter to think independently. Now, this trauma I mentioned at the age of around 18, we're looking at the right hand here and we don't see quite the same sort of thing. So I'm wondering if this was more mental rather than a physical trauma. But the very real life stresses between the age of 25 to late 20s are evident here on the lifeline. And I think we can also see some corroboration in the fate line here, with the islands that have developed here early on. So this is teens, and as I say, I think this person had some difficulties within becoming independent, or at least in those years, and their work life seems to have, starts in this place of It's not the typical area for a career line to begin. It starts in, well, maybe it is typical. It starts more in the center of the palm, which is a sort of typical-ish, but then it's also almost lunar. I'm stumbling a bit here. This is a complex palm. So I'm not entirely certain where or how this person's found themselves career-wise to begin with, or what sort of role it is they begun with, but it does seem to turn towards a place of hierarchy and hard work and the kind of average job, and a place of authority and judgment and decision making and leadership. So it's interesting to note that around the age of mid-20s there was a change, and perhaps a hobby here that wanted a desire to turn a hobby into a career. Perhaps that's what this was, and did actually turn it into a career. But that's there, and this is more a sort of creative endeavor. The little finger tapering slightly at the end here, and with the tip of Mercury being longer than the other phalanges of Mercury, shows someone that is interested in science in some way and has an ability to speak eloquently. And it's, as I say, it's the Mercury reaches above the first phalanx of Apollo, which is an excellent sign in terms of the ability to communicate. And I don't just mean that verbally. Verbal communication makes up for only 7% of all communication. We communicate with our the tone, inflections, the rhythm, even stopping and starting when we speak, but also our eyes, our body language, and also we communicate with the way we express ourselves as well. And that's not just in sort of visual creative arts. We express ourselves physically. Athletes express themselves physically, even when we are carrying out hobbies like sports. That's well, I've just said athletes, but even fishing is a form of it, isolating kind of expression, I suppose. But we express ourselves through our creative projects that we put out there, and sometimes we don't put out there. Sometimes this expression is purely for ourselves and our own what we want to show to ourselves. Sometimes it's the little finger, I've learned very recently, can be very deceptive in terms of what it's telling us. And in a lot of palmistry books, you'll see a little finger, if it reaches above the first phalanx of Apollo, this is someone that's able to speak well to individuals, but also to large groups. It's not necessarily true. As I say, it's not about speaking, it's about communication, it's about expression, and this involves a great, many ways of doing this. So the little finger, the length of it, does speak for how the message we're trying to get across, figuratively and literally. And again, there's a lot of ways that this can be done, especially in the online world. I know someone who has agoraphobia and suffers with panic attacks and can't speak very well, yet their Mercury finger is long, and it shows that they have an ability to speak, to communicate, but it's not always as straightforward as this means that they can. Sometimes there are other barriers involved and other things going on. But I do think this person, as I say, has eloquence, has the ability to hold good conversation, intelligent conversation, and also there's an interest here in a certain science of some sort. So that's interesting. I'm telling myself that's interesting. And as this person ages, their sort of psychological outlook changes direction. And I think that's around the age of 30-ish. You can't really time events on the headline or any line reliably except for the lifeline, and then you have to kind of cross-reference these events with other events elsewhere on the other major Palmer lines and draw conclusions from there. You can judge certain events on the fate line, or the destiny line, if you like, but not as accurately as the lifeline. The lifeline is the best way to do that, and I think the reason why this person changed their psychological outlook after the age of 30 was to do with how they got through this difficult period in their lives. Health-wise, there are a couple of things I want to mention here because if you look here on the left hand, it's not, as I say, it's not a completely reliable picture because the angles, sometimes angles can skew findings, and that could be what's happening here. But look at the Mercury finger, see how it's particularly sort of a bit more bulbous at the end, as are the rest of the fingers here as well. Clubbing is known as, and it's a sign of potential coronary or lung issues. And looking at the right hand as well, you can see it a little bit here as well. And looking to kind of corroborate these signs on the palm itself, I don't see too much on the left hand, but on the right hand, I do see some potential atrial fibrillation here on the right hand. So initially I thought, well, perhaps this is an inherited coronary issue, but actually I think this could be, well, it still could be, but I'm not so certain about that now. I think this could be something that's just developed over time. I'm not sure if diet is an issue. Generally speaking, when it comes to dietary issues, this is evident in the third or the basal phalanges being much larger. I don't see that so much with Jupiter though, and that's the one to look out for. So I'm not so certain that this is a dietary related issue. Perhaps this was always going to come around. It's not extreme, but I would advise this person not to exert themselves physically it's sort of all in one go or in any extreme measures, and particularly in cold weather as well. No cycling to work like a madman in the cold weather. That's partly my coronary advice here, but I'll also drop some coronary advice in the description as well. And while we're on the subject of health, on the right hand little finger, just on the tip here, notice the vertical lines here, just a few vertical lines here. We don't see this on the left hand. This is a sign of a thyroid issue. The way to help, yeah, it's possible there are metals in the blood here. This is very common with people who have lots of fillings or piercings. Because these metals can react badly in the body, against the body. They seep through the skin, and we're not really aware of how they're impacting us, and sometimes it can create a thyroid issue. A lot of the times it's poor drinking water, and that's down to where in a country we're drinking that water from. Mid Wales particularly has great drinking water, and then you go a few miles across the border and into England, and all of a sudden the drinking water is awful. So I highly recommend getting a water filter, replacing aluminium cooking utensils in the house with ceramic ones, anything but aluminium basically. And sea kelp is particularly good for detoxing these metals in the blood as well, and I'll drop all this in the description as well. But that's how to help often the causes for thyroid issue, thyroid imbalance. Otherwise, obviously consult your doctor about this. Quite often, though, they're not great at diagnosing these issues. Now, in terms of what else is there, there's other things I want to mention here. So there's travel ahead for this person, late 40s. So that's cool. It's definitely going to be a fun time. And in terms of success, there's several lines here on the Apollo mount, and they're all they look more artistically inclined because they're kind of stemming from the heart line, also partly with assistance from a loved one as well. The career looks good from 35 to 53. The career looks promising. And after that time, it's sort of uncertain. There's lots of possibilities there. And because of that, the future is an ever-changing series of possibilities due to the changes we're making in the present. And if a person is is at a sort of crossroads periods in their life, sometimes the future becomes more uncertain and these lines decide to change. So late 50s, there will be a time where career requires a little bit of protection, support, probably from a loved one or from other avenues of income. So if this person is, and it's possible, renting out accommodation that they've bought, they might be living off these proceeds whilst they're looking for work. I'm just kind of spitballing here. But work will continue after late 60s. So a person with 3 or 4 success lines, there's 3 major success lines here, they're all close together, which is a good sign, indicates someone who has several incomes, but also it can indicate someone who is not, they're putting their eggs into, they're not putting their eggs into one basket, that's not what they're doing at all. They're dividing their energies in making income, and so sometimes when a person does that, they're not, you catch 2 hares, chase 2 hares, you'll catch none. And that's sometimes what happens with multiple success lines. But I don't think that's what's happening here. They're all close together. This is like a bunch of arrows tied together, so that's strengthened the results, I think. So they're helping each other out, it seems. And I think what you've probably got going on here is a couple of side projects, and they're growing. But this person will never be without money. Also, it's not particularly a person that cares all that much about money. So it could be that they're spending it as fast as they're earning it. I don't think that's the case. Typically speaking, a person who is unable to hold on to money has gaps in between the fingers, and I don't think I see that here. So I think this person, this is more relating to fulfillment and peace. And as you see, one of these sun lines here, a very straight one, curves off towards Mercury, this place of expression, and more of a place of sort of creative, expressive endeavors. So that's really nice to kind of finish off their road to fulfillment and joy and happiness. So that's really nice. What else? That's about it, really. Yeah, I'm just looking at my notes here that I've written. Excellent stuff. So I think that's everything I can really say here on this palm. It's been a difficult read. But I think this is overall a very, gifted, giving, intelligent, a person who's able to absorb that knowledge and then pass that knowledge on and wants to do that, enjoys doing that, and the lives of others will be better for it. A long headline like this is one of the signs of, headline that's this long indicates someone that's that thinks things through, but also is a sign that someone is affecting the lives of many others through their actions. And that's evident in other things that we've seen here in this person's palm. In terms of children, looking at the family ring, I see the potential for one child on the left palm. On the right, I'm not sure what I see. I think I still see the potential for one there as well, which is a good sign. Let's have a look at the reset. Let's move that up there. Everything looks good, sexual organ wise, so that's good news. Alright, thanks for watching, and thanks for all your comments and your feedback. I really appreciate all of the input that everyone's providing. Every little like, every share, all the subscriptions. Thanks for subscribing. It's this channel. It's been a bit of a journey for me, and it still is. I'm learning a lot as I'm going, and I'm enjoying teaching as I'm going. I still got a lot to learn myself, and I'm getting lots of emails from people every day now asking me lots of questions about palmistry, asking me if I can do palm readings for them, and I'd love to do palm readings for everyone, but I can't do that for everyone. It's just I don't have the time. So if I've told you I'll do a palm reading for you, I will. But if I haven't, then I might not get around to it. I'll do the best I can, but it just takes an incredible amount of time. I've got to make notes as well before doing readings, and otherwise it's just a bit of a mess. So yeah, thank you for everything, and please subscribe, please keep watching, and email me any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, but I might not be able to carry on doing these readings in a kind of the volume that I'm doing them. So thanks for watching, and see you on the next random palm reading.